great having you on Nigeria's first agricultural television in the capital city of Abuja, Nigeria. I am Hilda Hamson Francois. Welcome to the program Improve Seeds. Today I'm with my plant breeder, Miss Andrea Dama, and of course we are going to talk about the best agronomic practices of wheat. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, the young breeder is going to enlighten and we're going to explore the world of wheat. Stay tuned and don't go anywhere. Improve Seeds on ARCN Television. Welcome back. Before we went on the break, of course, I told you that I'm with my young Miss Andrea Dama. Welcome to the program, Miss.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm great.
It's always great having you on the program.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. No, it's always an honor. All right. Today we're going to talk about the best, agronomic practices of wheat in Nigeria. So can you give us a little brief history of how wheat came to Nigeria?
Okay. Thank you. So wheat is one of the earliest cereals that have been domesticated by man.
Okay.
Even up to today, it's ranked as the second cereal in terms of production after maize. So how wheat came about, it was, it looked like grass. So it grew, in the wild like grass, and people started bringing them close. Okay, let me domesticate this and see what happens, since it has something like greens looking like maize, like sorghum and the rest. So that was how it began to be cultivated in a proper manner. However, in Nigeria, when we noticed that our environment could cater for some type of wheat, because globally there are two kinds of wheat. We have what we call the spring wheat and the winter wheat. The winter wheat grows in a colder environment, and the spring wheat can do well in tropical areas. However, wheat generally does well in areas that are temperate, very cool, just like Irish potato. So when we noticed that our environment can accommodate this, we decided to import wheat, earliest from America, then Mexico, then Russia, then we began to domesticate it in Nigeria. And then we noticed that during the dry season, where you have the harmattan and the temperature is lower, it was able to thrive and grow well. So that was how we started. So if you go to the northwest part of Nigeria, where irrigation is practiced, you notice that it is cultivated on a large scale. Yeah.
Wow. Now you talk about coal, of course. Now, can Nigeria produce both types of wheat? The spring wheat and of course the winter wheat. Can we both produce it, since the northeast produces, of course, I'm sure, of the winter variety of wheat? Then what part of Nigeria again can wheat grow, very well?
Yeah, we can only produce the spring wheat for now.
Oh.
The winter wheat cannot do well in Nigeria, except of course we have screen houses. When I mean screen houses, sophisticated greenhouses that can accommodate, but only the spring wheat can do well under normal environmental condition. The winter wheat is that wheat that when you go to China, places that are extremely cold with ice, it can thrive there, but it cannot thrive in Nigeria. It was tried when we wanted to domesticate, but it failed. So we also have areas that can cultivate wheat, like I said, places like Kano, places like Jigawa on a large scale, Sokoto, places like Maiduguri, Borno State, cultivates wheat. However, we also have areas like Jos Plateau that have started cultivating rain-fed wheat, not just irrigation now. So rain-fed is also cultivated in Nigeria. Jos Plateau, Mambila Plateau in Taraba, and most recently Cross River State, Nigeria.
All right, so it's interesting now to know that we've started producing the rain-fed, because I know the irrigated method was what was actually used. So now, if you weigh between the irrigated methods and then the rain-fed, which do you as plant breeders feel is best for our farmers? And of course, the end product is what we look out for.
Yeah. So before now, when it was just irrigated methods, we had a lot of shortfalls with regards to infrastructure, irrigation, obviously. Then because it is not a crop we discovered on our own, we imported seeds and started. So we now have shortage in terms of genotypes or varieties we cultivate during that irrigation. Then cost of production, water is not easy, pumping water, supplying water, especially at the earliest stage of growth for wheat. So you notice that if it's for smallholder farmers, it's very expensive to cultivate purely with irrigation. So rain-fed came about, trying to meet up with production. Remember that in 2020, the Ukraine-Russia war made us look inwards. Okay, we need to cultivate, we need to meet up with our production. We cannot be depending on these countries. So rain-fed cultivation now came about. Currently, we are short of seeds because the seed system in wheat is not clearly defined. So we don't have enough to meet up to irrigation and enough to meet up to rain-fed. However, the rain-fed is still an evaluation stage. You know, we've not released varieties that we can say, okay, this is a rain-fed variety. It is still those irrigated varieties we are using for rain-fed in order to produce varieties adapted for rain-fed environments. So I would say for farmers, they've been using irrigation, so they should continue using irrigation. However, because of the cost of production, plant breeders are in the pipeline trying to make sure that rain-fed varieties are available so that we can cultivate all year round.
Wow. So what, you recently had your summit, about wheat. What are some of the highlights of the summit, and what should farmers get to know, to get themselves abreast with the challenges that are associated with wheat production?
Yeah, so that summit is called the Weka Wheat Summit, West and Central Africa Wheat Summit. So it came about in before 2023, it came about as a result of conversations. Okay, how do we make sure we are self-sufficient, not depending on countries that will go to war tomorrow and then we are in a fix? So in 2023, we had the first summit, and then most recently we had the second summit. So this is countries in West and Central Africa coming together to rub minds. How do we develop policies that can meet up to our below production in wheat? For example, we have the potentials. Just in Nigeria now, we've talked about not just irrigation, we are capable of cultivating rain-fed, same as most other countries, except maybe for Ghana that is still trying to stand on their feet. So one of the takeaways from the summit is to ensure that, for example, our research institutes work as fast as possible to release the rain-fed varieties for wheat. Now, it's my interest us to know that our consumption or the use of wheat, we're talking about almost 6 million metric tons in West and Central Africa. Then our production is just below 200 metric tons. So it's way beyond what we are even consuming. So majorly the takeaways is seeing how our research institutes can speedily bring out rain-fed varieties, and also we form farmer units to make sure our production is fast, and also and the government was charged to develop prioritized policies that are suitable for wheat production. Can give the farmers incentives, support them, seeds, make them have access to lands to cultivate wheat, especially during irrigation.
Oh, that is good. That's a good one. That's a good one. Now, with the whole, things surrounding the irrigation system of farming, what are some of the diseases and pests and diseases that affects wheat, that apart from the water, the insufficient water supply, and because the seeds are not improved seeds, because they have to recycle their seeds. So what are some of the pests and diseases that affects wheat, and then how can farmers see how to protect their farm?
So for irrigated wheat, incidences of pests and diseases are quite low, except after planting, when you have birds that come to chip, and then people use scarecrow to chase them away.
But the animals now are
also wise,
now.
So that's a problem in terms of irrigation. But for rain-fed wheat, the challenge is quite high, and probably that is why up till now we have not released rain-fed varieties. One of the major diseases that affect wheat during rainfall is what we call the wheat rusts or stem rust of wheat. You know, if you just see the leaf, it affects the leaves and stem. You see the leaves, it looks like an iron that is rusting, brownish like that. And over time, application of pesticides have not actually controlled this. We have losses, you have grains that are formed, and then what you have is just powder at the end of the day. So the yield is almost lost. So that is why when you're looking at producing varieties, breeding for varieties, you're also looking at disease, rust resistance, which might take a lot of time. So the application of pesticides and insecticides have not really controlled rust for now. Then you cannot control water during the rain-fed environment. So we also have problems of lodging, where you know all the plants just bend. They don't, and it's difficult when you come, because of the kind of soils it grows under. You don't, not like root crops that you come and eating up to cover up. It doesn't work like that for wheat because the stems are very tender. So when lodging happens, you've lost some parts of your crop.
Wow. Now you're scaring our farmers. Yes, because if at this stage we cannot control water and the pesticides are not helping, what then should they do?
Yeah. So for irrigation, like we said during the worker week, it is for the government to prioritize policies that encourage irrigated, because like it or not, the areas that are suitable for irrigated wheat are way higher than, like I said, rain-fed is just Plateau State, Taraba State, and most recently Cross River State. But when you're talking about irrigated, these states can accommodate it in addition to all of that northeastern state, northeastern and western states. So we need to empower them with the right seeds, with irrigation facilities. I know during the worker weeks we had the Jigawa State Governor that was there. So I think they've done a whole lot for wheat farmers. You know, the structure is so beautiful, and it has helped them improve the cultivation of wheat under irrigation. So I think one of the take homes was you know, talk to other governors in that zone to see how they can also empower, because we cannot rely entirely on rain-fed. It's just an addition. So it is that irrigation. And you know, when you're doing irrigation, like I said, the disease infestation, even the lodging is not so high as that of rain-fed, because you know, it is during germination that you likely apply water for 4-5 hours. But after that, when it starts to head, you can even cease applying water. If you apply 30 minutes, 1 hour, and you're done. So cases of too much water on the soil, it's controlled under irrigation.
But as plant breeders, have you thought about the inorganic pesticides?
Yeah, it is currently inorganic we are using.
The organic?
Yeah, the organic, it is not so. There are problems associated with organic use of pesticides. For example, we're talking about so much rain that makes this rust multiply. So you know, you're using organic, you're using biological means, which our research has shown that it even makes the environment more damp, more cooler, to aid multiplication of those pathogens. So with inorganic, it is easier for wheat to just, you know, take it in, but for organic, it stays on the surface for a number of hours. That helps breed those pathogens to multiply faster. So you know, it is a natural environment, so it gets cooler, and it's just like fungi trying to calm down, and then the environment is enabling it here.
We've heard it from our guests, and we'll go on a short break. When we come back, discussion continues. Wheat production in Nigeria, we have the rain-fed and of course the irrigated method, and of course she is emphasizing on the irrigated method, which is easier to control than the rain-fed method of farming or propagating wheat. Don't go anywhere. Improved Seeds continues after the short break. Stay tuned.
Since then, Professor Shaributu has operated as visionary captain by restoring the council's glory with the first ever agricultural television and radio station in Nigeria. with well-equipped studios parading state-of-the-art equipment.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria also has a brand new electronic library to further promote research and visualizations of deep thoughts on agricultural development in Nigeria.
The museum, located in the Senator Abdullahi Adamu Center, is an agricultural museum saddled with the responsibility of keeping records of agricultural findings, discoveries, researches for continuity and history purposes.
ARCN
Promoting agriculture.
Alright, welcome back. This is still April States on ARCN television, and I'm here with Miss Dama, our plant breeder, and we're talking about wheat production. And before we went on a break, we talked about there are two types of wheat. We have the spring and of course the winter. The winter does not, or we do not practice it, most especially in Nigeria, except places like China, where the weather is extremely cold. But spring, of course, within some eastern part of Nigeria is good for it. And of course, there are two also methods of practicing the rain-fed and the irrigated method. Of course, she also summarized and highlighted that it is more efficient and important to go into the irrigated method of producing wheat. For our farmers who want to, and for those that are lucky to be in those states between Plateau, Northeast, and of course Cross River, can you give us stage by stage ways at which they can go in and have their own production of wheat?
Okay. So for wheat, it's not for subsistence farmers.
Oh.
We are not direct users of wheat.
Okay.
If I will say that. We cultivate wheat for industries, processors, for the flour mills. You do not go to a house that you don't get people who eat bread.
Sure.
And then, let me just state this, that our wheats, we have what we call the durum wheat and what we call the bread wheat. The bread wheat is the one we use for flour that we consume. Then the durum wheat is the one we use to make pasta.
Oh,
yeah. So they are different, but all of them are spring wheat.
Okay.
So whichever farmer that wants to go into wheat production should know that you're not going into it for a small scale. It's not something you boil like maize and eat. So there is a bigger market out there for you. So one of the things you have to watch out for, I said earlier that the seed system of wheat is not yet defined. So what we harvest is likely what we just keep a part of it to plant for the next season, and then part of it to sell off. So we need to look out for our seeds. How healthy are those grains we are selecting? We should select grains that are healthy, that are not broken. So before planting, our lands has to be well pulverized. You have to plow and harrow. You do not plant wheat on just a flat land. The soil has to be well loosened.
What kind of soil?
You have to use a sandy loam soil. However, there are some parts of the country that you can grow in areas that are waterlogged and they do well. But make sure that waterlogging does not extend to a very long period. So you make sure your soil is well loosened, well drained. So you can either plant wheat by broadcasting, you just pour it on the land, or you can also do what we call line sowing or dibbling. You create lines where they can grow on different lines. Well spaced. So, and then you space them 30 meters in between the plants. And then in between the lines, you have 1 meter difference. So at planting, one of the things you should look out for is to apply fertilizer during planting. So what you're encouraged to do is those seeds, you mix them with NPK fertilizer and then you plant. Then after a month, you come back again and apply fertilizer, urea. At planting, you use NPK, then you use urea. make sure when using NPK, the concentration of nitrogen does not outweigh your phosphorus, because you're coming to use urea in front, so it does not, become too much for the crop. Then there are 3 stages of the growth. When it begins to germinate, it forms stems. We talked about lodging, which is a very delicate state. Then it begins to form what we call the head. So that heading stage is where the grains begin to form. And then once that heading is done, you don't need to be too worried about anything, except you're doing rain fed that you have to weed continually. But if it's irrigation, once or twice you're done. Before it takes 4 months for it to mature. So before that 4 months, once, twice you're done. Irrigation is just like every month. Rain fed, every month you're weeding. So once it starts heading, your mind is at rest. Then when it's ready for harvest, obviously it begins to look brownish, dried. And then if you want to touch the grains, you can touch them. They are strong enough. Then you harvest. Since if you're a large-scale farmer, you use the combined harvester that does everything for you. Then if it's subsistence, which is not encouraged, because your money will go into it and you're not going to get cost of production back. So if you can use a sickle, then after that you winnow, you separate the chaff from the seeds and all that. But the combined harvester does everything for you. So these are things you should look out for. Very important: fertilizer application at planting and after a month.
And so now with this fertilizer application, does that mean that the farmer must use the fertilizer during production? During planting rather?
Yes.
Okay.
Because our soils in Nigeria are marginal soils. And wheat is not something that grew naturally here. It's something we adopted. So, and the truth is, because we don't carry out soil analysis in our country, we don't even know what is obtainable in the soil. So we need to meet up that. The soils need to cover up for nitrogen and urea. So it's very, very, very important.
Yeah. All right. So what words do you have for our farmers there?
Yeah.
Because they are really tense. You're talking about they can't, just plant it at the back of their houses. They have to go into the commercial farming, and this one that the pest control is not in place. The seeds are not in place. But I'm sure a lot of people want to go into the production. So what do you have for them?
Yeah. So for wheat production, there are many procedures. We talked about the many uses you can use. You can also use them for your animal feed. Okay. So now that we're encouraging home gardening, you can also decide to just do a subsistence wheat cultivation at the back of your
so it's
house. It's very much allowed. So these are ways we can diversify production of wheat, and then so you can do that. Okay. You can also want to say, okay, instead of doing swallow, I have to go and buy semolina and the rest. I'll just do small and then mill it in my own little way in my house. So we can do that. It's good to think big, but if our resources are not up to that, we can think of doing a subsistence wheat production at our backyard. Home gardening is what we encourage in agriculture today.
All right, thank you so much for being part of the program. It's always exciting. I'm always excited having you on the studio because you give us a lot of information, and of course our farmers are enlightened today. Keep updates, and I hope when I call you next time you will be around.
Hopefully, yeah.
All right, you've heard it from her, and she encouraged you. Go into wheat production. We can do better. It is high time we all put our hands on deck to kick hunger off Nigeria and the world at large. I am Hilda Hobson Phantom, and thank you so much, Ms. Andrea, for being here.
Thank you.
Keep watching more of our programs where we tell you more about agriculture. Take care of yourself, and bye for now.